What's going on, guys? Love Smash, back with an all new video for you guys today. And this week has just been an onslaught, no pun intended, of Marvel vs. Capcom news. A few days ago, we got this massive leak pertaining to the game's initial or launch roster, whatever you want to refer to it as, of all the characters that are going to be included in this game when it debuts in September of this year. Now, this is where everything started getting crazy, because the second this came out, it got the fan community talking, and the word that's been bouncing around is underwhelming and disappointing on what characters will be featured in this game. Fans have been complaining whether or not this is actually legit, but for the most part, many fans are buying into it because they've been coming from very credible sources, that of being Rice. If you guys are not familiar who Rice is, he is pretty much the go-to guy when it comes to any kind of MVC Infinite news that's been coming out. For example, leaking the game in the first place, talking about how a character was going to be featured with all these animations that the development team really deserve credit for, discussing future DLC pertaining to X-Men and Fantastic Four, quote-unquote Fox Wright-owned characters. Many things have come true, many things are still waiting in the wings, but he's kind of been that go-to guy. Now, another leaker came out and said all this information, it came on a thread on NeoGAF. Lo and behold, Rice got involved, and then all this information started spilling out. Lo and behold, we know 27 out of the 28 definite characters that are going to be on this roster. Now, like I always say, with any kind of leak and rumor, always take it with a grain of salt, because we won't officially know if it's true until we see it with our own eyes. And now that E3 is about a week or so away, this is where fans are kind of really like getting the momentum going, saying this will be kind of like the make or break time to know if this rumor, leak, whatever you want to refer to it as, is really legitimate. Like I always say, keep an open mind, take it with a grain of salt, do whatever you will. But this is really where a lot of fans are buying into, because it's coming from credible sources. And I wanted to kind of share, because I feel like my last video was kind of lackluster and compared what I wanted to do and discuss this leak rumor, because I didn't have a whole lot of free time this week. So I wanted to kind of do like a breakdown of events that led up to this, go over the list of characters, give thoughts and opinions on why, because that's kind of like the main gripe. A lot of fans have been using the words underwhelming and disappointing looking at this roster of the initial characters. Now, we do know we're getting at least 6 DLC characters, and they're going to be quote-unquote all new. And one of them is definitely Sigma, so that still leaves 5 more, potentially with other characters coming as well. I reported on other stuff in videos pertaining to, like, we know that I just mentioned earlier about the X-Men and Fantastic Four characters, as well as the comic book cover variants that are going to be debuting and coming out for this game as well. So I kind of wanted to do a breakdown of the leak, discuss other things, go over potential options that I feel would be the best cases for DLC, bearing in mind if this leak is indeed 100% factual and legitimate, because that's what we're going on basis of this video, if it is 100% authentic and legitimate and this is the game's roster. Now, all signs are pointing to it being, but of course we won't know until we see it. But I kind of wanted to go over first of what led up to this. Now, a few days back, this leaker by the name of Sakio Bro basically opened the floodgates and gave us a ton of information by saying, quote, "Learn some new details over the weekend. I'm going to try to keep it vague and not confirm any characters specifically to avoid ending up on event hubs or whatever, but of course we know that ship has kind of sailed. 28 character launch roster. I know all of them, but one for sure, and I think I might know who the last one is. No Ace Attorney, Beautiful Joe, Final Fight, or Okami characters. No Miss Marvel, no X-Men or Fantastic Four to speak of. Of the remaining cast, there's 1 returning MVC2 character, 9 characters coming back from 3, 10 if the last character is who I think it is, and only 4 more newcomers. I know of the DLC character besides Sigma, he's coming back from MVC2, not sure if he's scheduled for this year or next year. There's definitely some cool surprises left, but I get the impression most people are going to be disappointed. Then a few threads later on the message board, Rice started to get involved. People started going to him, asking him questions. Here are just some of them. They're not in any particular order. If you want to see the full thread, I'll drop it in the comments and description below. But somebody asked him, these 28 characters better be godlike. He says, oh, they're not. Also goes on to say, seriously, guys, prepare yourself. The launch roster is a massive effing disappointment. I can't believe there's only 4 female characters left to be revealed. And then he goes on to say how Ultimate MVC 3, there was 8 months of development, and that game had more brand new characters than this game's going to have. So you can kind of see Rice, who was building the hype and the momentum for this game, is just you can see the tone in the change of his typing, saying how disappointed he is, because MVC has always been that game that always had a huge hype and following. But here are some others. I jumped the gun. I'm in just a state of complete shock. Someone else might post details soon. Then somebody asked him, is there anything you've seen games thus far that actually made you excited, or is it just one huge bummer? He said, personally, I'm really, really bummed. It feels like Street Fighter V all over again. The game as a service with model with ton of DLC and a shoestring budget based game. There's only one non-Marvel Cinematic Universe character. Now, another interesting part by Sakio Bro is he mentions right here about another potential DLC character by stating, okay, really last tidbit this time. Black Panther isn't in the base game. Considering the variant covers, which I mentioned earlier and did a video about, the variant cover stuff, I guess it's safe to say he's already being planned as DLC. And then he put a last part talking about how there's only really 7 newcomers. Now, on a roster of 28 characters, that's a quarter of the roster. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're working with a 28 character roster, that's 1/4 of the roster right there is taken up with newcomers. But of course, we know when it comes to MVC, there's high expectations for a large roster. Just going back to the initial games, like when you look at MVC 2, there were 56 characters. There were around 50 in Ultimate MVC 3 when you added all the DLC and all that other good stuff. But here are a few more threads as well to finish it off, where Sakio Bro goes on to say, we could debate characters, aesthetics, gameplay until we're blue in the face, but ultimately my advice is that everyone would just stay patient and give it a shot. The roster's smaller, but personally, I'm in love with the new mechanics, and there are definitely still enough characters for me to find at least 2 I really click with. Phoenix Wright and Beautiful Joe are 2 of my favorite fictional characters. I'm incredibly bummed that they probably won't be involved in the story mode at all, but I'm pretty confident they'll be back at some point before too long. So that's kind of interesting as well, because this guy's saying there's other stuff he hasn't shared, and then he's mentioning Phoenix Wright and Beautiful Joe. So that's something I want to go over later towards the video when we talk about DLC, because we know we're getting 6 brand all new, they stated all new DLC characters, but what about other like legacy characters? How are they going to factor into this equation? So we'll talk about that, but a few more threads here that are very intriguing, where Rice goes on to say there's a returning MVC2 character on the base roster and another one as DLC. Now, if you guys did not hear about the leak, I'm assuming going into this, but I'm going to go over it in a second, we know Thanos has already been confirmed on this quote-unquote leak, but he's saying there's another one as well. Now, my guess from that, it would be Doctor Doom, where he debuted in MVC2, and they're stating Fantastic Four characters will be added as DLC. So that's my guess, but of course it could be Felicia, it could be Bison, it could be Tron, it could be any of these other characters. And he also goes on to mention, finally, the big news where a lot of people are really hyped about, that Venom is going to be added as DLC at some point as well. So here's the list as followed. I didn't post the exact one Rice put up, but he basically said he was given permission to share it, but I thought this would look a lot nicer to have all the renders right there. So let's start on the Marvel side. Captain Marvel, Captain America, Hulk, and Thor, Iron Man, Hawkeye have already been confirmed. That's not surprising, we already knew that. Doctor Strange returning doesn't shock me at all. The movie just came out. They may be doing more in the future. He was a very popular character and highly requested, so it doesn't shock me. Nova, on the other hand, does surprise me, because here's a character who hasn't really been prominently featured in the movies as of late. He's been mentioned a lot. So I know he was like really big with tournament players and stuff, and really he was really like a highly played character, so maybe that played into that. I personally wouldn't have chose Nova, not because I hate the character, but there are other characters I would have liked to see more than him, but not a bad inclusion, definitely, to have him back. Then we have Ant-Man. Ant-Man is one of the first newcomers, and he is just one of those, like, the movies have been extremely popular in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It doesn't really surprise me he made it in. It's going to be really intriguing, though, to see how he plays out in terms of just his base moveset. I know his supers, they can have him grow, like, to big sizes. He can grow smaller and do all these crazy things, but his base moves and attacks are going to be really interesting to see what they can pull out. Spider-Man returning. We all knew Spider-Man was going to come back. Gamora, on the other hand, I'm very shocked by. Now, this can come down to a lot of things, but I really did expect Star-Lord to be in this game on the base roster. I'm very shocked by that. Him and Edward Falcon for the Capcom side are the only 2 characters I was really hoping would be in this game. Anyone else they wanted to choose is perfectly fine with me. So I am a little shocked Gamora got in, whether it was more of adding a female rep, having more Guardians of the Galaxy representation. But it's going to be interesting to see how her moveset works as well. There are other females I would have chosen over her, because like I said, Star-Lord would have been a better representation from Guardians, but we'll get to him a little later in the video. But there's Gamora, the second newcomer besides Ant-Man. And Captain Marvel, we know, is confirmed, like I said. That's 3 newcomers. Then we have Rocket/Groot, as he mentioned them. And he goes on to mention that's how the character was told to him. He doesn't know if it's a tandem between Rocket and Groot, or if it's Rocket with Groot assisting him in his moveset. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. We kind of saw that little teaser of his one of his supers where you saw Groot beat him up and then Rocket fired the blaster at him. So it could potentially be a tandem character, but I think it's more just his assist. But like I said, we'll have to wait and see on that. Moving on to the next character with Ultron, the fourth and final newcomer on that side. We already know he's confirmed. Thanos is coming back, as we saw mentioned earlier, and I said that there was a character returning according to them from MVC2 where Thanos debuted. Really cool to see him back. He hasn't really been in any 3D games, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he plays in the story with the Infinity Stones and stuff. So really cool to have him back as well. And that's it for the initial roster. Now, as you see right there, Venom is one of the characters they already named as DLC. Venom has been such highly requested to return. Him and Captain Commando, I think, have been in the top two on Marvel and Capcom respectively that the fans really wanted to see come back. And Venom coming back doesn't shock me at all. I'm actually glad because I know how many people wanted him to come back. But that's the 14 and the 1 DLC on that side. So let's go through the Capcom characters next. So kicking it off with Ryu, Chun-Li, and Chris Redfield. We already knew they were confirmed, and it's not surprising any of them did return. We all knew they were going to come back. Now, Nemesis is a character that's really interesting because a lot of fans didn't really think he was going to come back, and I feel like on the Resident Evil end, a lot of people were expecting either Jill or Wexer to return, or even Leon Kennedy be included as a newcomer. So Nemesis returning is pretty surprising, so I'm not really shocked, but it's just one of those things like, wow, they really wanted to bring Nemesis back, so he's in as well. Then you got X, who already knows confirmed. Sigma is DLC, so he's not part of the initial roster, but he's going to be one of those quote-unquote 6 new ones to be added. Then we have Dante, not surprising, he's returning as well. Devil May Cry is a huge series. I feel like if he wasn't, it'd be shocking. Strider, we knew was confirmed. Arthur and Firebrand. Those are two characters a lot of fans really didn't think were going to come back, but I see why they did, because the Super Ghost and Ghoul series and the Demon Crest series, they're two really classic nostalgic franchises for Capcom, and Arthur and Firebrand really do play unique. I know Arthur wasn't too popular, but he's still one of those legacy characters for Capcom, so really not shocked that he made it back. Firebrand, on the other hand, I'm a little surprised by, but I see maybe because the tournament play kind of similar to Nova, he was popular in, and just how he is unique in his own way where he could fly around and do all that stuff. Maybe they felt the need to bring him back was more important than other characters, but pretty cool to see him back. Kind of a surprising pick there, but cool nonetheless. Then we have Spencer, which I was never really a fan of Spencer, but kind of the same with Arthur and Firebrand. I'm not shocked because Bionic Commando is one of those nostalgic franchises for Capcom as well. As long as they give him the classic Grad Spencer Terminator look, that's pretty cool if they kind of bring that back from Ultimate and the skins they had. And speaking those classic Capcom characters, I'm really surprised Mike Haggard didn't make it in, but like I said, there's always a chance for DLC, but he's one of those characters in Final Fight being pretty iconic in its own right. But anyway, moving on to one of the only 3 newcomers on the Capcom side with Monster Hunter. Now, it's a very vague term because we never really figured out if it is going to be the Hunter from the Monster Hunter series, if it's going to be one of the feline characters, if it's going to be one of the beasts from the series. I do think it's most likely the Hunter, so it's really interesting to see what design choice they go with, but I'm sure they'll have a ton of skins for different variants of how you can customize your character in the games. Then moving on to Morgan. Morgan obviously was going to be in this game, and brings us to the final newcomer on the Capcom side on the initial roster with Jedha. Now, this has kind of been a character that's been hinted at, going back to that rumor that Rice put out a couple months back by saying the developing team deserved a lot of praise for including this character's animation in the game, and fans couldn't decide if it was Dimitri from Darkstalkers, if it was Pyron, or if it was Jedha. Now, Jedha does make a lot of sense now that we kind of see this based on what he was saying. And a lot of fans have been complaining, though, if he really is in the game, they're gonna have to tone down his moveset a lot. But really awesome addition, as you can it's kind of an ongoing trend to add a new Darkstalkers character every time around. And that brings us to the final character, the one that he wasn't sure who it is, but said it is most likely Frank West. Now, Dead Rising, of course, has been a big franchise for Capcom, not surprising. It didn't sell, the most recent one didn't sell very well, but to see Frank West come back is not a bad thing because he had a huge following, even though he was supposed to be in the original MVC3, they cut him and then they brought him in Ultimate. Either way, so that's how it looks at the moment. 28 for the initial roster, 2 DLC characters so far. Now, like I said, a lot of gripes with this roster is the fact that there aren't many newcomers. There's only 7 out of 28 on the roster. There aren't many fan characters that a lot of fans wanted to see come back, meaning people wanted to see Captain Commando or Jin or Gambit come back from returning. You wanted to see a lot of newcomers. Azura from Azura's Wrath was a big one. Star-Lord, Daredevil, Black Widow, Black Panther. There, and of course, all the X-Men and Fantastic Four characters like Wolverine and Deadpool and Doctor Doom are missing from this. But like I said, there is the chance for DLC, and the rumors have been coming out, which we'll discuss right now. Now, going on, when Sigma was announced in the trailer, at the end you saw this photo, and it said 6 all-new DLC characters. So if Sigma was revealed, and they are stating all new, that means we should most likely be getting, it kind of just seems that way, 2 more on the Capcom side and 3 on the Marvel side. Now, who these characters will be, I don't know. But Venom would not constitute a all-new character because Venom has been in there before. So my guess, just on the wording, unless I'm reading too much into it, means that there's going to be 6 new characters. So my predictions would be on the Capcom side, Azura from Azura's Wrath, because I just feel that's a character the fans have really been requesting, and it really does surprise me he's not on the game's initial roster. With an amazing moveset potential, just being a really badass overall looking character, I'd be very surprised if he wasn't added, because I feel like he's one of those characters the fans would want to shell out that extra money to play as him. So with Sigma and him being those 2, the third and final character on Capcom's side for the newcomers, I gotta go with my man, Edward Falcon from the Power Stone series. I think Power Stone's a franchise that's been very underrepresented in MVC. I feel like it needs to be his time to shine and come back. Like I said, I'm being a little biased here because he's been a personal pick of mine, along with Star-Lord on the Marvel side, the only 2 characters I really wanted to see in this game, so I'm going to continue to support him. And I just feel he can bring a lot to the game's roster and the table in terms of a moveset with his supers and what they could do with him as an overall character. And I think not including him would be very shocking. But anyway, done with the Capcom side, let's move on to the Marvel side. Now, what's interesting about the Marvel side in terms of DLC newcomers is that if that's truly the game's initial roster, the cover variants, which we've known about a couple months ago, but of course the leaker felt the need to bring those up as well, could potentially play into character selection in the future for DLC when it comes to newcomers or even returning characters. So here's the list right here. As we can see, like Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, Hawkeye, Groot, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Spider-Man, Thanos, and Venom even mentioned there as well. You could see number 4, Black Panther. I'd be very, very shocked if Black Panther was not included in this game. Very popular ever since Civil War. There is a movie coming out. Perfect time to represent, add a character that's not only badass, but could potentially be very unique as well and bring some really cool moves and like just overall awesomeness to this game. So I'd be very shocked if Black Panther was not included. So he is my first pick for DLC. Now, as far as a second pick, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I would be absolutely stunned with Rocket and Groot and even Gamora being in this game if Star-Lord was not included. I am very, very surprised he was not included on the game's initial roster. Like I said, if that does hold true, like Guardians of the Galaxy has just become extremely popular. The first movie did great. The second movie was great as well. I'm a huge fan, and Star-Lord is just one of those characters I'm personally dying to see. So I might be a little biased here, but like I said, these are just my predictions for DLC. But if he's not included in the game's story, it kind of makes me wonder, where is he? Was he like maybe like defeated or captured by Ultron or something like that, and that's how Gamora and Rocket play into the game to save him or something like that? Who really knows? It's just speculating or just throwing ideas out there. But with the moveset potential and what he could bring to the table, just like I said with Edward Falcon and Zura and Black Panther as well, I think it would be really criminal to not have Star-Lord in this game as a playable character. Now on to number 3. Now here's where I feel the need to add another female rep, because people are going to destroy me if I go with another male character. Now, of course, the obvious choice would be to go with Black Widow. So if you can go and say, okay, Black Widow, you already have the 5 Avengers, original Avengers from the movie in there, why not add her as well? She's a female, there's a lot she could do with martial arts and certain gadgets and explosions and weapons and all that good stuff. So she would be the obvious choice, so I would pick her. However, if I wanted to really think outside the box here, there's so many other great females, and I was planning to do a full roster prediction video for this game, but now that this is out, I kind of feel the need not to. But there were 2 female characters, well, I should say 3 female characters on my list who could make better options for this game in terms of a newcomer. Now, the obvious choice is one that fans have been requesting, being Scarlet Witch, many magical attacks she could do, and just be really unique. She's popular in the movies as well, but it comes down to the whole licensing thing when it comes to a joint custody between Fox and Marvel, and I don't know if that's something they're going to do for a character of that nature, which they would do for more like, you know, like a Wolverine or a Deadpool or a Doctor Doom, so on and so forth. So Scarlet Witch is one option besides Black Widow, but 2 other characters I really wanted to bring up from upcoming Marvel series. Now, there's the Inhumans and the Runaway series coming out very soon. So if they really wanted to add a character rep from one of those, like there are so many great characters in the Inhuman series. Like I had Black Bolt on my list as a potential option. I thought it'd be really cool. But if they wanted to go with a really unique female, I would say Crystal would be a good option. Now, I don't know where that comes into play here because they debuted in the Fantastic Four comic books, but technically Inhumans, like if that's a series coming out for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, maybe it's easy to get the licensing for that. So if that is a possibility, I would go with Crystal as one option. She can manipulate all the elements, earth, water, wind, fire. That is something that's really unique and can make an awesome moveset out of. But if they didn't want to go with her, there is also another character coming from the Runaways series, who is similar to Scarlet Witch in terms of magic and illusion and spellcasting, with Nico Minaro. Now, like I said, the Runaways is fairly new, but it's kind of like this up-and-coming like comic from the past few years ago. There's a new series coming out. I believe it's coming out in 2018. I could be wrong, though. Correct me if I am. But I remember reading an article when they were doing MVC3 saying they wanted to add a staff-wielding character. So not only is a character here that can manipulate magic and spellcasting, also wields a staff in battle, and will kind of rep for not only a new generation of Marvel, but also for an upcoming TV series, similar to how Crystal would with the Inhuman series coming out. So there's another potential option there as well. So like I said, it's very hard, and these are like the 4 female characters I would just like narrow it down to. And while I think Black Widow is the most obvious choice, I would much rather see either Crystal or Nico based on just uniqueness and what they could bring to the table for potential moveset options. No offense to Scarlet Witch, but I think with the whole licensing thing, with the joint between Fox and Marvel would kind of make it a little tricky unless they could pull that off. But then it comes in a whole debate with Crystal. If she appeared originally in an X-Men comic, does that classify her as a Fox Right-owned character? Or in Humans, being part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, does that constitute her as being fair game? Like I said, I'm no expert when it comes to that kind of thing, but I would definitely choose probably Crystal or Nico for that final third spot as the 6 new DLC characters. But that brings us now to the fact that if these really are all the newcomers, of course we don't know because it's still early to tell, but if there really are only going to be 13 total newcomers, this may be the lowest of any game, and a lot of fan favorite, highly requested characters may not be included, just to name a few, like Daredevil or Punisher or Loki or Vision or Black Bolt or Tessa or Batsu or any other character from the Street Fighter series or Darkstalker franchise or Resident Evil like Leon Kennedy, just to name a few. That's going to really like upset a lot of fans. So it makes you wonder what else is in terms of future content for this game. Now what you're seeing are just the roster sizes for each entry in the series, and you kind of notice that in MVC2 we had 56 characters, with 40 of them being newcomers, and that number dropped to 38 when MVC3 came out, and we had DLC obviously with only Sumagrath and Jill Valentine, but 21 newcomers overall. Then finally when it came to Ultimate MVC3, we had 50 characters with 11 newcomers to be joining. So it kind of makes this a little lackluster if there really are only going to be 34 at the moment. But then we got to think about, if we know Venom's coming as DLC and they're hinting at this also, another character from MVC2 coming as DLC, it makes you kind of think, what other characters are going to be joining and how many will there be of those legacy characters? So that's what I kind of want to do right now, a little quick, like maybe like top 10 or so. So it makes you think, if they're going to do, let's say hypothetically 4, that would be another 8. If you do 4 from each side, that could be another 5 from each side, make it 10, or another 6, make it 12. That would add to that number, make the roster anywhere between 40 to 42, 44 maybe. That wouldn't be a bad roster size. And something I mentioned when I did the league coverage in general was maybe they're going with a smaller roster just because they're back to 2-on-2 rather than 3-on-3. That's just a theory, but kind of want to do like a quick little top 10 of the legacy characters that I think should be included in this game or need to be. So starting off with the Marvel side at number 1, Venom, it's already been hinted at multiple times in the leak, in the cover variants, just overall popularity. Be very surprising and disappointing if Venom wasn't included, so he's got to be number 1. Number 2, got to go with Wolverine. Wolverine is a staple in the series. He's been in every Versus series game to date. He's never missed one. He's the only character to actually do that. To not have Wolverine in this game is an absolute travesty. And as we know, it was Rice's leak. It was also an executive from the game saying that that heritage is not lost when it comes to the Fox Right-owned characters. So I'm sure Wolverine will be added at some point as well. Number 3, got to go with Deadpool. Movies are extremely popular. Deadpool being an extremely popular character in general and great addition to MVC3. Not to mention, just a little bias, he's my all-time favorite comic book character. So to see Deadpool not in this game, especially with the movie coming out this year, we have to see Deadpool at some point be added as DLC. Number 4, Doctor Doom. They're going to say Fantastic Four characters are quote-unquote a done deal according to that rumor leak. So Doctor Doom has been a staple, playing prominent roles in MVC3 and being included in MVC2. He may be that character they're referring to when they mentioned earlier in the leak that other MVC2 character. But like I said, it could also be Felicia or someone like that. Who really knows? But got to put Doctor Doom on this list also. And on to the last pick with either Gambit or Ghost Rider. Now, there's so many great characters I could have went with, like Magneto or Storm or Sentinel or Dormammu or Iron Fist. I decided to go with Gambit or Ghost Rider because Gambit's just been so popular ever since the first game. Many fans were upset that he was cut. Not only would add another X-Men to this list of characters, but then I decided to go maybe even Ghost Rider has a shot considering the movies. There were two. They were kind of big hits. And Ghost Rider's just a pretty badass character and brings some uniqueness with his motorcycle and whip chain to the game. So figured it came down to one of those two, but like I said, there's so many great others. Now moving on to the top 5 really quickly of the Capcom side. At number 1, Captain Commando has been so highly requested to return. Like I said earlier, it came down to him on the Capcom side and Venom on the Marvel side. Those have been the two I've really been seeing a lot of fans hold out hope to see return. So I had to put Captain Commando. Number 2 would be Jin. Jin was my favorite character from the original game, and I know he's got a big fan base as well that want to see him and represent from his franchise as well to make a return in MVC. So to see Jin would be pretty awesome, just to see him do the Blatia fist. Remember how awesome that was? Number 3, I would go with a character I'm not particularly a huge fan of, or the game series in itself, but I know it's a very big franchise for Capcom, and that would be Phoenix Wright. I know people just love Phoenix Wright and demanded he be in MVC3, and he was added in Ultimate, so to see him possibly be added as DLC wouldn't be surprising, so I put him at number 3. Number 4, had to go with Beautiful Joe. I was a big fan of that series, and I know fans just love Beautiful Joe and want to see him return. He was very unique with his moveset because he could slow down and speed up time, and I've always loved those games, and it wouldn't shock me if they decided to add him as DLC also. Like, you want to add those characters the fans are going to go out and purchase, so I think he would be one of them. And as for the 5th and final pick, my guess is as good as yours. There are so many great Capcom characters, just as there are on the Marvel side that I could have went with. Like, you go with either Mike Hagar, you can go with Felicia, or Wexer, who's extremely popular, Amaterasu, Tron. All these characters would make great additions. Like, Amaterasu at least brings some variety and uniqueness to the game. The Wexer is extremely popular. Felicia's a fan favorite. Hagar, such a long history with Capcom and the Final Fight series, and Tron. Everyone seems to love the Servbots for some reason. I never got it. But either way, those are just like a quick top 10. And I know I covered a lot of stuff in this video, but I really wanted to do a full breakdown of the leak, go over character choices for the new DLC characters as well as returning characters, share thoughts and opinions. And as we know, a lot of fans are very disappointed with the roster as it sits right now. If it is indeed legitimate. Staying at only 28 characters is underwhelming and disappointing compared to a series that has been known for large rosters and a lot of newcomers. But you never know what the future holds. We don't know if they are going to stick to just those 6 newcomers as DLC and those 7 that are supposedly on the initial roster. We don't know if they're planning to add more characters. Many fans have been bringing up Street Fighter V and how they're not going to make that same mistake they did. But we already know that fight money isn't going to be something in MVC. So that's kind of tricky, but a little curious of what they're going to do. Maybe they'll release certain packs, like they'll release like 4 characters, like 2 on the Marvel, 2 on the Capcom side, and they'll do like these season packs, and they'll release them and make people play this game over a long period of time. Who really knows what the case is, but I guess we'll have to see how they do this in terms of new characters as well as the legacy characters and where this all pans out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about this leak. I really wanted to go in depth about this, so I know this is a pretty long video, so thanks for sticking with it. But do you guys agree with the roster and the characters they picked? Of course, a lot of people are going to say no. Do you think they're kind of really banking on DLC for this game? Personally, kind of feel that's the case here. They're going to put out this roster very small, but then make it better over time with DLC. But of course, a lot of people are going to be disappointed because that's kind of Capcom milking the cash cow as they've done in the past. But be sure to share your thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, a lot of info, but really wanted to share my thoughts about the leak as well as give my thoughts on the 6 newcomers as well as some legacy characters who I feel do deserve to come back, or at least should or maybe. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like always want to hear the feedback and share your thoughts. And like always, for all the latest fighting game news and speculation, be sure to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter. Thank you guys like always so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a brand new video.